What's the tech? Why women need empowering in technology. Join us for an interview with Josie Haynes, a passionate advocate and change maker for women in technology. Did you know that 56% of women leave the tech industry within 10 to 20 years? Josie's on a mission to change that statistic by empowering women in tech. Get empowered with effective communication strategies, resilient tips, and 3 ways to empower yourself at work. Don't miss this inspiring interview with one of the pioneering forces in the tech industry. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Let me introduce our guest for you today. Josie Haynes is a renowned advocate and change maker for women in the technology industry. With over 23 years of experience in software engineering leadership, she has worked in executive roles at Silicon Valley's tech giants, including Apple, Zynga, and American Express, and most recently served as the Vice President of Software Engineering and Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Tile. Josie founded Josie Haynes Consulting in 2022 to empower women in tech, coaching them to lead authentically and ensure their voices are heard. She also provides strategic advice to companies looking to foster inclusivity and high performance within their teams. With her mission to retain women in tech, Josie's experience and pioneering spirit make her a leading force in the industry. Please help me welcome Josie. Hey, Josie.
Hey, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, April.
My pleasure. Thank you for being on the Wellness Driven Life Show. It is great to have you here. And I know a little bit about you, but let's start off to give the audience a little bit about your background. Now we're talking tech, right? So you have a story about how you were enthralled with it from a very young age.
Yeah, so my passion for computers started when I was 5 years old. I got my first computer, a Commodore 64, which I'm sure ages me for some of the people paying attention. And I love technology since then. And it's interesting, my parents wanted me to be a doctor. So my undergrad degree is actually in chemistry and material science. But I ended up realizing I had little interest of going to grad school or becoming a doctor. So I graduated college, ended up getting a job as a technical consultant for PricewaterhouseCoopers, where they sent me to a 3-month boot camp to learn how to code. And I picked it up with ease, was soon teaching my colleagues. And then they sent me out here to California for a week, and that week changed my life. I fell in love with technology. This was 2000, the middle of the dot-com boom. So there's just so much energy. I loved the climate. And I said, I need to be out here. And so in January of 2000, I actually got a job here as a web developer for a little tiny dot-com startup and started my tech career journey.
That's amazing. Now, so you didn't go to school initially for it, even though you had wanted to. You were going by what mom and dad's desires were instead of your own. And you went into chemistry, et cetera. Did you ever find anything in comparison with tech to the studies that you had prior to?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think what going into chemistry and material science really taught me was how to be really detail oriented and just how to learn, right? I mean, I think I've always been an avid reader. I've always loved to learn. And so, I think it just taught me how to be like really good at learning new things and being willing to try new things. So I had really realized around my junior year that I didn't want to go to grad school. And so that's when I realized, hey, if I get a minor in material science, I can actually take engineering classes across the entire engineering school and not have to do as many chemistry classes. And so that's actually how I ended up graduating, is by literally taking a class in like every single engineering department.
Awesome. Well, you happen to merge a lot of things, and we get so many things from life based on just learning and doing, right? And we're able to piece together different things, and that well-being in the technology world. And so let's talk a little bit about what it was like when you were in that. So now you're in this incredible place, which I'm a little jellyfish over because I love where you live. And so when we think about work-life balance, it's not always just about one thing or two things. It's this whole big umbrella, right? And when I think about the importance of living in an environment that you enjoy, that you can go outdoors because the weather is good the majority of the year, the sun is shining the majority of the year, that's one thing. And there's so many other things that go along with that when we talk about our career, where we spend the majority of our time. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, and I think tech is kind of known for not having great work-life balance. And
Yeah.
so it but it, I loved living in the Bay Area. And for me, it was such a game-changing opportunity to just be continuously surrounded by people who wanted to change the world, right? And
Mm,
whether or not we agree that tech has entirely gone in the right direction in all areas, back then, like there was all this hope, right? Like I literally got my first cell phone when I moved out here in 2000, right? So technology like was really just picking up,
yeah.
right? And it
Yeah.
ended up making me really realize I loved being here and just seeing all the potential possibilities of how we could really change the world in a positive way. And that's what really inspired me around about the tech industry. And it was like, how do I change people's lives for the positive, create worlds that, and experiences that really help people.
That's a really great point, and that majority of people in tech go into it for just that. They really want to make a difference. It's how can we advance and evolve in this beautiful way, because there's so much potential. And when the possibilities are endless, it seems, with technology, I mean, that's just it. So it makes us become even ever more creative.
Absolutely. And, like you were saying, there's just so many different ways you can be in the tech industry, right?
Mm.
Kind of fast forwarding to my current journey a little bit is, when I first started really focusing on retaining women in the industry, I was really focused on let me keep them in their corporate roles. But especially in the last year, I've really realized staying in tech doesn't just mean working in a corporate environment. It could mean
Mm.
doing what I'm doing and supporting women in this industry and supporting companies that are trying to change the world and helping them do so. It can mean deciding you're going to leave your day job, which is unfulfilling, and go start something that you're passionate about and go create your own startup, right? I think
Yeah.
one of the challenges that we sometimes run into in tech is we get sold like you need to just keep going to that next title, next pay level, next career. And you're not stepping back and asking, what is the life that we really want to be living? And so
Mm.
that's the question I pose to so many of the women that I work with is, what is it that makes you happy? And how do
Right.
you want to be feeling today? Let's not wait for retirement to figure out how you want to be living your best years of your life.
Josie, we get so caught up in the day in, day out rut where we at one point had this passion, this idea, this inspiration that led us into whatever career field we went into and working for whoever, whatever, whether it's for ourselves or someone else. And again, it's easy to go into that mundane where every day seems the same. Now, what was your experience when that started to happen and you started realizing that this isn't what's working for me anymore?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I think especially for high performing women, or actually all a number of high performing folks in tech, you just almost get addicted, or you just also continue
Mm.
just delivering and doing more and more amazing things, and you don't even give yourself credit for it. I worked on Siri Music during the development of the HomePod. When I was at Zynga, I was there when we scaled from 1,000 to 2,000 people our first year, and I went from a software engineer to a director of engineering in about 3.5 years.
Mm.
At Tile, I worked with pretty much any IoT company you can think of in this valley to do integrations, and then got my boss promoted to CTO and myself to VP of engineering. And going back to Apple, I also ran Siri on Apple TV, and we won a technical Emmy for that experience, right? But you realize you're so stuck in this, like, oh, I need to do something better and better and better, that you don't stop and smell the
Mm.
roses and
Mhm.
realize I've accomplished some really amazing things along the way. And again, I talk to so many leaders in tech, and it's the same thing, right? We're high achievers, and we're constantly chasing that next dopamine hit of like that next achievement. And what I really ended up realizing when I was at Tile, so my passion has been retaining women in tech. I actually almost left the tech industry in 2018 when I left Apple because I was going through burnout and imposter syndrome. And I actually thought I was an awful manager, despite the fact that everybody on my team was telling me I was one of the best managers that they'd ever had. And so I had taken a step back then, gave myself some focus on self care, and realized, A, I love tech, right? Going back to I've been playing with computers since I was 5 years old. Like, I love tech, and technology is still not serving the needs of women and underrepresented minorities. And so when I joined Tile full time in late 2018, I said, I'm doing this under my rules this time. And so I spoke to the new CEO who had recently joined, and I said, look, if you want me to join full time as your platform engineering director, I want to make sure inclusion isn't lip service. I'm going to do an amazing
Mm.
job as your engineering director, but I also want to start a mentorship program. I also want to lead your DEI efforts. And he surprised me. He said, Josie, I wanted to make Tile the best place for women to work in the Valley. And so I loved it, and I joined and delivered on that promise. We started that mentoring program. 8 folks were able to switch roles within Tile thanks to it.
Mm.
I open sourced it. Mozilla and a number of other companies have based their mentoring programs off of it. We created that inclusive culture. I got my boss promoted to CTO and myself to VP of engineering, so we could scale the engineering org from 29 to 55 in 4.5 months in the middle of COVID, while keeping our inclusive culture. And I realized I'd done it, but there was still something lacking. And I
Mm.
realized what that was is my mission. While I love technology and I love building things and innovating things, I wanted to help other women figure out how they can truly thrive in this industry and really find their dream life, right? What is it that they actually want, not what everybody is telling them that they should be doing? Because so often we put ourselves last in the priority list as women.
Oh, that's very true. We do. We're very giving. Men and women have such a beautifully different approach to things. And that's how you can create a really awesome anything, right? A really awesome world because we both bring some really cool stuff to the table because we think differently. And I always thought that when I was in law enforcement, I was able to bring a lot of different things to the table and communicate with people, and others would open up to me more, maybe because they think it's a soft thing. They wanted to open up to me more, etc. And so we just bring different things. And I want to talk a little bit about and go back to, you had this experience of where you finally started speaking up about, hey, this is what needs to happen. This is what I want. And if you wouldn't have said anything, nothing would have happened. Do you feel that it took you a little while to get to that point, to really be able to use your voice?
Oh, absolutely. It's if you had met me in early 2000, I was a very different person, right? I mean, it literally took me
Yeah,
those
of course.
18 years to truly find my voice and realize
Mm,
I'm done living by other people's rules in this tech industry, right? And so, for those of you who might just be starting on your journey, realize it is a journey. And every year, you're going to potentially hit a new level. And, starting my business last year, I realized, I've obviously I think I've done over 100 talks now in the last 4 years. And so I'm always out there. And so people are like, oh, you know what you want, and you're very clear. But I've realized it is still a journey for me. I am getting
yeah.
so much clearer on what it is that I actually want, and so really treating life like a playground where you have that beginner's mindset. And I think again, so often we get into this like, oh, I need to hit that next level of achievement, but take it take some time to enjoy the process along the way. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the day to day. Don't just be living into this future of like the next accomplishment. And I think that's been one of my biggest like personal development journeys is, we especially as high performers, we try doing a
Yeah.
million and one things sometimes. And then we get into the sunk cost fallacy where we're like, oh my gosh, I started doing this and I must continue doing it because I committed to somebody or even just internally. And you feel like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, if I stop doing that, I'm wasting time, right? But
Mm,
are you really wasting time by saying no to something that doesn't truly light you up? And
right.
so, I've been really learning to listen to my intuition. And especially as women, like we have such amazing intuition and we don't always use it.
Well, yeah, it's
And
hard to
especially,
tap into it, right? When
yeah,
you're going 100 miles an hour and trying to do and solve everything.
yeah. And so, I say figuring out what you want is really an exploration for the rest of your life and never stop learning, never stop pursuing new things. And you might love some of the things you do and you might hate some of them, but treat everything as an experiment and don't get so attached to the outcomes.
I love the experiment word. That just brings this air of discovery and excitement. And when you don't expect anything, so not having expectations, it's a huge thing. And I agree with you. I've been on that journey of learning. We all are. And so, Josie, thank you so much for sharing that. What are some of the things that you do now on a daily basis, to keep you in that good standing of personal health and well-being?
Yeah, and so this has definitely been a big exploration for me. And actually, in the last month or so, I've really realized like I need to even focus on this more. I had some health stuff go on, and it really made me wake up to the fact that like I needed to be eating better, I needed to be
Uh,
drinking more water. But the main thing is spending a few minutes every morning just really getting in tune with how do I want to feel today? What are
mm,
the three things that I want to accomplish today? And really having the mindset that I have more than enough time to do the things that are important to me. And because I think so often, again, like when I was into VPN tech, my calendar was triple booked. I barely had 30 minutes for lunch if I got lucky. And I realized that was not healthy or sustainable. And so yesterday afternoon, I took off at 2:30 and took a 2-hour walk with one of my former colleagues in the Baylands because I wanted to get outside on a beautiful California day. And you have to give yourself permission to take care of yourself. And, I think sometimes, especially women, again, like I said, we put ourselves at the bottom of that priority list. But the thing I reinforce with a lot of the leaders that I work with is it's like they say in the airline industry, you have to put your oxygen mask on first, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And if you're not managing your self care, that's actually directly impacting your energy. And if you don't
Right.
have that energy, you're not going to be the most effective leader that you
Of
can.
course.
And so while it can feel selfish to say, I'm exhausted today and I'm not going to come to work, that is actually not just serving you from your knowledge of self care. It is actually teaching an insanely valuable lesson to your employees who are looking to you as an example so they now feel they can take care of themselves too.
Mm. I really love that you used the I have enough time to accomplish these things. I think myself included, probably on a daily basis, you feel overwhelmed or like you have to get it done now. But if you look at a bigger picture, it's like, no, I have enough time. And when you start changing that verbiage and that wording and self talk, it really makes a big difference. And to, like you said, just slow down and, start, taking some more time with yourself. And you talked a little bit about teams. I would love to
Mhm.
know, how do you build inclusive teams? Because you discussed a little bit about that's something that you do.
Yeah, and so I really think it starts with the leaders, right? So I talk about my empathetic management framework for this, right? And first, it starts with leaders becoming more inclusive leaders themselves, right? Figuring
Mhm.
out how to lead with empathy, right? Realizing that allyship, again, is a learning journey and not a destination. And so it's the onus is also on you to learn what it means to be inclusive, what it means to hire a diverse team and how to do that effectively. It's not on all the underrepresented minorities in your company to teach you unless that's what they want to be doing. Right. Then the next thing is creating values at your team that incorporate these inclusive aspects, right? One of the things I talk about is look at your meetings. Do you have inclusive meeting practices?
Mm.
Look at who's speaking up in your meetings, right? That's always a very interesting thing. Who
Oh,
is
yeah.
speaking the most, right? And is
Mhm.
everybody really getting a chance to share their insights? And then finally, the last step, and this is the one that I see a lot of companies not getting to, is then operationalizing all of these things into their business goals. Because one of the things I think, I always talk about the fact that, yes, this is amazing from the equity perspective, but in building inclusive and high performing teams actually helps a company's bottom line because they will actually create better products and services because they are taking into account the needs of our diverse world. And there are countless examples. I could most likely speak for hours on all the different examples I've run into where we failed
Mm.
underrepresented minorities in so many industries. And it's the little things that you need to think about. And if you don't have a diverse viewpoint when building new products or services, you're going to potentially miss out on those things.
You're correct. When I brought up teams, I did that because we need that collaboration, the
Mm-hmm.
connections, and we don't do it alone. And so it's such a
Mm-mm.
vital aspect of going about business and life and the personal and all of it, because we are all truly connected beings, and we have to have that that work along together. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it is a challenge. And why is it a challenge? However, I'm curious, Josie, do you see that there is a shift in the tech industry?
So it's interesting that you mentioned that and you're speaking around teams, and especially because used the word connectedness. So the Surgeon General, I think at the beginning of May, actually said we are in the middle of a loneliness epidemic
Mm,
in this country.
mm,
And this isn't just within tech, like it's and it started even before COVID. Before COVID, over 50% of I think it was over 50% of Americans were saying that they felt some sort of loneliness, and then COVID just impacted that, right? And I think in tech we're in a really interesting period here where a lot of the industry went remote during the pandemic, and now companies are really trying to figure out, how do we create maybe hybrid environments? How, do we need to bring people back to the workforce, right? And I think the one thing that I'm seeing is we're saying these things, but then at the same time, so many of the layoffs in tech happen by somebody getting an email. I had so many of the women I work with say they get PTSD checking their email first thing in the morning because
oh,
they are worried that they're just going to find out they got laid off because they got cut off, right?
from
And
an
so if we
email.
want, yeah, from an email,
Sad.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so it's I'm seeing this shift in like companies saying they want to be building these cultures, but then some of these actions that are being taken in the industry right now are not aligning with that. And I think there's been kind of this shift again towards like anti-DEI, kind of not just in tech, but somewhat globally recently. And it's
Mm,
concerning, right? More women leaders than ever before are switching roles more so than men. The latest McKinsey's Women in the Workplace report, had some pretty sobering statistics around this. And trust in
mm.
women's leadership has actually gone down as well, right? And so I think we're at a really pivotal time where it's even more important than ever to be building true connections, because that is how we thrive. And going back to that Surgeon General report, one of the things that I thought was like crazy to me when I saw that is, if you are suffering from loneliness, that is as bad to your health as smoking cigarettes on a daily basis.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, we can die from it. True
Yeah.
story. It is fact. And so along those lines, you're very, very good at building teams, and you've given us some
Hmm.
tips and tricks in that. Well, what I'm curious about, does that far stretch from what we would do on a personal level? Because I feel like that's really where it starts. And if people are, so in and out and of the tech industry or any industries in general, and the turnover rate is high, then it's up to us to manage ourselves on an internal level first,
Hmm.
because life, it changes all the time. That's the one constant, right? Is change. And so how do we maintain that?
I think it's a constant reinforcement, right? To realize like there are going to be ups and downs in life. There might be a crisis at work, but one of the reflection exercises I sometimes have people do is, if this was the end of your life and you were looking back, how
Mm,
impactful is this really? Right? Because when we're in the middle of some work crisis, it can really feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't solve this today, like some catastrophe is going to happen. And yeah, maybe there is going to be some business impact. I'm not saying that these things don't happen. But if you look back at the bigger picture, it's where should you really be focusing and spending your time? And it's really about, let's live in the present, right? I think
mhm,
so often we're chasing the dream. The term that I heard recently, which I loved, is called the deferred life plan, right? We're constantly chasing that next goal, but we don't stop to ask ourselves, what is it that we really want? And when we have a desire for something, what we really are desiring is the feeling that we think we're going to get from that. So, how can
Mm-hmm.
we live our lives every single day and be feeling that more and more? And then
Right.
sharing our true vulnerable selves with others, right? And I love the fact that Zoom and technologies like this can enable us to have these sorts of conversations. But I feel like we've gone to such an extreme where people are not connecting on a day
Mhm.
to day basis. And there is such a power to having a face to face conversation.
Yeah.
So much of tone and even body language and all of these things get missed in this virtual world.
Mm.
And so it
Mhm.
is so important to be seeking out connection in your personal life, because again, if you're a leader at a company, if you are happier and you are feeling more fulfilled, you are going to be impacting your team in a positive way because they see that. Versus if you're just running from meeting to meeting to meeting, completely stressed out, that's the energy they're going to be picking up
Great.
and thinking that
Yeah.
that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, you definitely pass that energy along. And so I love that you brought up it in thinking about the end in mind. And how is this going to affect the future really? Like what sort of impact? It almost reminds me in a strange way of when you pick up an item and you say, "Does this bring me joy?" and you keep it or you don't. It's like it's the same kind of concept. What is this really serving? What impact does it have? And how does it make me feel? Because ultimately, if we're going along in our daily lives on how we feel and that's transferring onto everybody else, then it matters like a lot in a big, big way for us and everybody else around us. And that's why it starts with us first, right? And some of the best
Mhm.
meditations that we have are the ones that draw us into those feelings, those good feelings, because how you think and how you feel is what creates that um, the way that we turn about and we continue on with that. So really great tips and tricks, Josie. Thank you so much. We'll move into our commercial, and then when we get back, I can't wait to hear more about what you're doing now and your personal life. Stay tuned.
Bella Grace means so many things to me. I still remember being a young woman and having that name in my heart. And I also am a mother of 2 young girls now. I love more than anything to spend time with them. I wanted to do something that would be empowering, deliver amazing, proven products that work to the marketplace, but most importantly, give amazing opportunity to people all around the world.
It truly is her passion. After over 25 years in the pharmaceutical medical world, I've dealt with lots of doctors, lots of chemists, lots of scientists. So when I saw all the double-blind clinical studies that validate and back up beyond a shadow of a doubt that have over 10 years of proven results,
It's truly beauty from the inside out.
we knew that we were going to be bringing a very disruptive force to the health and wellness world, and that's exactly what we've done. And we have exclusives to make sure that nobody can replicate or duplicate what we've brought to market.
The amazing shine, the amazing plumpness, the hydration.
It's as if you're watching magic happen right in front of your eyes. It's something you don't get with the most expensive products out there.
We started interviewing influencers. We started interviewing influencer companies. So we thought, what if we could give them more? And that's exactly what we've given them, is an influencer model, exactly what they wanted and expected, with an affiliate model built around it.
They give you a platform to become an influencer.
Customer service, marketing department, manufacturer, the packaging, the people that are doing our software, the comp plan. Every single person here are literally experts in their definitive field. It's over 100 years of experience in the direct selling world.
So we've been able to partner these 2 worlds and bring the best of the direct sales affiliate marketing world with the passionate social media influencing world and bring them together.
That's something that we haven't seen out there yet.
The best tools possible, the best platform possible that anybody, even if you weren't in the established influencer, you could come here and build out a community of influencers.
Anytime, anywhere, on my phone. It doesn't matter who you are, what your following is. Bella Grace is giving us all the opportunity to create a business for yourself. This is the time to take advantage of that.
Can learn more about Bella Grace in the description below. So welcome back, Josie. I would love to know more about what you're doing now. I know you've talked a little bit about it, but you have been so inspired to create something new in life, something for you, something for others, something expansive to where you're really making a difference and having an impact on so many different people. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And, so in tech, you obviously have impact on other people. And my focus in the tech industry was really on working with large scale consumer products, right? I've had billions of people potentially use things that my teams have built over the years. And that's amazing. But what I realized was, I wanted to have more of a personal impact on the lives of women in this industry. And so in July of last year, I left my VP of software engineering job at Tile and started Josie Haynes Consulting. And my focus is really twofold, right? We need companies to be building inclusive and high performing teams. And I do a lot of public speaking around that. But my real passion is helping keep women in this industry and helping them really figure out how they are going to thrive and what it is that they want to be doing in this world, right? So a number of my clients that I've worked with, nobody's ever told them or asked them, what makes you happy? Truly, like outside of the being praised for those accomplishments on a daily basis, like what internally makes you happy? And
So I'm going to stop you real quick because I feel like when we're asked that, and tell me your experience with people, is it difficult to answer that?
I think it is, but we need to be asking ourselves this on a much more regular basis, because if not, we're just letting life pass us by and not living our best lives, because we're, again, living the life that everybody else is telling us to do, right? In tech, it's go get that next title, go get that next promotion, go get that next role, right? And if that's what you want to do and that's really aligned with your goals, I'm 100% going to support you in finding that VP or CTO role. But if you end up realizing, hey, this isn't serving me anymore, I feel like I'm in meetings all day and just feeling unfulfilled. So often we can spend years doing that and not ask, is there something else that we should be doing with our lives, right? And again, I'm not saying everyone should go quit their day job today.
No, but learning to ask the question so it doesn't turn into years, right? And I think that's what is kind of an epidemic, so to speak, is that people are going years and years and decades into the same thing and not truly asking themselves, and that doesn't help them or anyone else around them. And that's the point, right? Is to be able to change that and have people aware of that we can be asking these questions.
And I think it's also important to realize that as you grow and learn new things, what you truly want can change, and that is okay too, right?
Yeah, I love that you said, I love that you brought up that you should ask yourself that question on a regular basis. And how often would you say we should be asking that question?
I do kind of this visioning exercise like every 3 to 6 months where I really consider, like, what is my vision, right? And I mean, especially now, I'm on a huge, little did I know that starting my own business was also going to be a huge personal growth and development
Oh, yeah.
journey as well, where I really, lots of people who've known me are like, oh, you know what you want, Joseph. And I was like, really, I don't think I always did. And I've really been exploring, how can I stop being a people pleaser? How can I say
Mm.
no to things so I can really say yes to the things that light me up? How do I trust that I have an amazing value to provide people, and that doesn't mean I have to just be giving things away for free and free and free, right? Like really,
Right.
really being aligned with your values, really being aligned with what it is you want to be doing in the world, and realizing again, it's a journey. And especially for women who don't ask themselves a lot, like what it is that we truly want, the first couple times I started exploring this, I very much had a work focus, right? And it's actually very interesting. I have printed up on my wall my initial vision when I started my business, and it's entirely business focused. And I had this
Mm.
realization about 6 months ago, which was, but wait, the whole reason I started this business is not just to help women leaders. It's also like I wanted to live my best life too. I've
Mhm.
worked really hard for 23 years, and it's not that I want to coast, but I also want to enjoy life a little bit right now. Life is short. Both of my half siblings ended up passing away before their
Aw.
65th birthdays,
Oh, I'm
right? And
sorry.
it made me really realize, like,
Yeah.
hey, it's not that everyone's going to, but life is short and you never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. And so how can we really be living our best lives and feeling the feelings we want to feel today, right? And again, it's not
Mhm.
that you have to change everything overnight, but how can you spend 5 minutes today doing something that truly lights you up? And something that we don't do enough as humans these days is play. Right?
Mm.
Back to when we were
Yeah.
children, we would play all the time, right? But again, where people are like, oh, that's not productive. It's like, I call BS on that. Playing is actually truly productive because, again, you're regenerating your brain, you're giving
Mm.
yourself that energy. And when you're playing, your creativity starts working in the background. And so that's most likely when you're going to get a ton more ideas than when you're just sitting stressed out in back to back meetings.
Yeah. Speaking of playing, I'm gonna bring in a couple of your photos, and here is you and your hubby, and
Yep.
you're enjoying life.
Yep. So this was actually about a month ago. So this was our 6-year wedding anniversary. So this is actually the beach we got married at. So we wanted to come back. And originally, this trip had been scheduled in the middle of COVID, but then COVID hit and got canceled. So
Mm.
we said, this was a trip 3 years in the making. And it was just literally, I get so much energy from being around water, especially
Yeah.
the ocean. Um,
Mm.
I was born in Puerto Rico. I learned, my parents, I think, taught me to swim potentially around the same time I learned to walk. They had me in the water at like 6 months old. And
Yeah.
so, like, the water has always been so rejuvenating for me. And so, I love Hawaii, and it just has that like leaned back beach vibe that makes me really learn and think about, like, how do I want to be really living my life on a day-to-day basis?
Ah, I love that rejuvenation. Time is a little slower there, isn't it?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. And then this is you and your father.
Yeah. So, I am so excited for this picture. So this was actually in April of this year. My dad feeds the homeless on Thursdays and Fridays, and so I joined him and was helping distribute food. And
Mm.
my mom passed away from Alzheimer's in 2013, and my dad was really struggling at the time. And at the time when my mom passed away, I had this thought that I wasn't sure my dad was going to make it another year.
Yeah.
And he has since then gotten into the best health of his life. He's really
Mm.
reconnected with his spirituality, and
Wow.
we have the best relationship that we've ever had in our
Well,
entire
geez,
lives.
Josie, we could just talk about that on the show, make it the whole thing, because that is an incredibly inspiring story. We talked about loneliness, and that is often
Mhm.
what happens when one partner passes and the other is left. And sometimes they only last another couple of months or what have you, because they don't know how to function and move forward and what else to do. And so this is very inspiring about your father getting into the best shape of his life and finding something to live for, and now you have an incredible relationship.
Yeah, and it brings me joy. We had some amazing deep conversations about things that like we had not spoken about, where I had felt
Mm.
very hurt during that earlier period, we were just able to open up. And so it brings me so much joy, and I'm just so much more connected to my dad now than I have been. I mean, I've always been daddy's little girl, but like our relationship now is just so much richer, and
Aw.
I value it on a daily basis.
Oh, okay, I have to switch the picture because it's going to make me cry. So
That's my baby dog. So this is Coco. So he's my 13-year-old dachshund. So my other dog, Astro, who I'd had for 16 years, actually unfortunately passed away in December. But and so I've got Coco now, and he's very much a one dog family. He's like, I don't want any other doggies coming in and stealing mommy from me. So he's definitely my little baby, and he's helped me through the hardest times in my life. And so, I talk to him. He's like my best friend sometimes. And so, I think pets can bring us such joy. And he's so in tuned with my feelings. Like I was sick a little
Mhm.
bit in May, and like he was literally attached at the hip to me when I wasn't feeling well. And I think it just realized, yes, it's about connection with other human beings, but there's so much connection with the
Oh, yeah.
animals in our world that can also bring us some of that joy and love and peace as well.
They sure are in tune with our emotions, aren't they? Incredible. I love that you have this network of people and pets and friends outside of that, because
Mhm.
we really do need that. It is so vitally important. And it sounds like to me that is a piece that your dad found, and within the serving of others.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I didn't realize how impactful it was going to be for me to actually join him. It's not like he goes somewhere and people randomly show up. Like we literally were finding homeless and feeding
Mm.
them, and they were so grateful. I had a little girl come up to me and give me a hug. I
Oh,
and
wow.
the other thing is, they didn't take more than they needed, and they shared with others even when they only had so little. And it was just so heartwarming to see the human connection, and that
Mhm.
just one person can make such a huge difference in these people's lives, right? And I think, sometimes in tech we get into this mindset like to change the world means you have to be impacting millions of people, building these huge products, but you can change the world by helping 10 people or 20 people on a regular basis, because you're not just helping them, you're helping every other person they potentially interface or interact with. And that
Yeah.
is so much joy to me, at least.
It
Yeah.
is that chain reaction. It definitely is there. Um, so very, very cool. You're doing a lot of fun things. You're inspiring many people and the audience here today on the Wellness Driven Life Show. And so I want to make sure that people know where to find you. Josie's website is www. It's here on the screen, josiehaynes.com. That's JOSSIEHAINES.com. That is also in the description. And for those of you who are listening in, you can find that through listening to what I just said at josiehaynes.com, or also in the description. Many of you are going to be watching the replay. So Josie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your tips and tricks. Tell us a little bit about what people are going to find when they visit your website, or what services you offer. I know you're definitely a light, a guidance. You have some really cool stories, and maybe you want to share, because you shared an incredible story with me right before jumping on this live.
Yeah, so I will share that story about why it is I do this day in and day out, right? And it's again, it's there's so much joy from helping others. And I had spoken to a lady about 6 months ago who was feeling kind of depressed about her job. She's been working in tech, similar to me, 20 something years. And she wanted to hear my story about how I had left the industry and started my own thing. And I shared, and I'm very vulnerable with folks. I'm willing to tell them the ups and downs, what works, what doesn't. And so I haven't heard from her in 6 months. And she said, Josie, I have an update. I want to meet with you. And so I met with her this morning, and she said, you know what? I was able to leave my day job in mid-April thanks to our conversation. And not just that, I've now started my own startup, and I'm so happy on a day-to-day basis. And she shared my story with her daughter, which changed her daughter's mind about, whether you have to just stay in this like linear career path and not explore new things, right? And she called me a trailblazer, and I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you. And that's what brings me joy on a day-to-day basis. And so my website's actually a little bit out of date with exactly what my focus is on right now. But my real focus
think it's
is on
beautiful,
coaching.
by the way. Just so you
thank
know,
you.
I mean, everybody who's listening in, you can usually tell who's truly advanced in the tech world and who's not. So your website is beautiful. And so, yeah, I definitely want you to share, what would it be if it was more up to date of what you're more passionate about right now, but it is impressive.
Yeah, so, and it's still the same general focus, but the theme on the website is more about helping companies and leaders build inclusive and high-performing teams. And I still enjoy doing that. And like I said, that's a lot around what I do public speaking around, and also obviously public speaking around motivating women to thrive and stay in this industry. And so if you're looking for a speaker for an event, that's definitely one of the things I do. Right now, my focus, because I realize that that's really what brings me joy, is coaching women leaders in this industry, helping them figure out what it is they truly want to be doing, and helping them accomplish that. Whether it's, they right now want to find a new role in the tech industry, whether it's, hey, I want to leave my corporate gig and start my own thing and need support along the way. I work with women across a variety of different things, and some of them were focused on like the leadership skills. How is it that you can show up as your best self as an executive and thrive in a male dominated industry, right? There are skills that are needed to build that executive presence. And I work with everybody on that to mindset, right? Is how do you play more a little bit every day? What is it that truly brings you joy? How can you reduce your work hours, right? One of my clients works at one of the FANG companies and was able to reduce her work hours by like 50%. So she could actually focus on what brings her joy. And she's still like getting amazing kudos and is in track for most likely a promotion later this year, right?
That's
and so
awesome.
again, we get so in our heads about what we should be doing. But I don't know if you can see it because I got the blur filter on, but I have this little piece of paper on my desk, and it says, I get to. Because so often we say, I have to do something. I have to go work out. But what is it that you get to do? Right. Isn't it much more empowering to say, I get to work out, right? Absolutely. And so I help women think about these things. How do you live your best life today and not live that deferred life plan? And so it's everything from how do you show up as a more effective leader, to, hey, how can you start incorporating, getting more energy back into your day to day, more self care, because this is a holistic process in my mind, right? While my
Yeah.
focus is leadership coaching, it is a whole, you're not, your work, your life doesn't stop at, like there was, I think, this Apple TV show, I forget the name of it, where they literally had two different people whose brain would shut down between work and personal. And it's like, that's not how we really live, right? So I say, like, I'm about coaching the whole human being with like loving accountability and empathy and helping people truly live their best lives.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, when you start to play and you start having a balance, you activate that creative mind. And then
Mhm.
guess what? We're creating really cool stuff and actually advancing in the technology field. So, very, very cool. Thank you so, so much. Josie, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today?
So, something I always tell everybody is, remember that imperfect action is better than no action at all, right?
Mm,
And so, don't wait to have the perfect self care routine. It's okay if you get a C plus in it, right? If you're doing it 3 days a week, that's better than not doing it every day, right? I think, again, we get into these perfectionist tendencies as high performers. But if we take a step back and give ourselves some self compassion and are truly on our own side, then we can really live our best lives. And when we truly live our best lives, other people will resonate with that energy and be attracted to you, and you will be able to also make money that way as well, right? And so I think that's the important lesson, is especially in tech, I think, very male industry, right? And we are very much in the hustle and grind, and we haven't taken a look at the feminine energy and how we can
mm.
actually leverage that, especially as women, to build things in a different way.
Oh, thank you. Such beautiful things that you shared today and that we can apply in our own lives. I love that. That's always my favorite. So, thank you again, Josie, so much for being a guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show. Everyone knows where to find you. And that's it for now. And I want to let everybody who's tuning in, and I want to say goodbye for now, and we will see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.